Shuffle and cut that cabinet, Mr. President. Plus good news galore in South Africa this week in today's wrap, 10th June 2021. What a week. There have been loads of important steps forward in South Africa, from big news in electricity that was announced today to leaps in accountability as charges were finally brought against the Guptas and their allies. And the economy got an A for trying. Read on for the big stories of the week, brought to you by me, Verashni Pillay, and the Explained at Curzai team. First up in our take, what's your new health minister's name? We don't blame you if you can't answer that one yet. We told you last week that Zweli Mkhize was on his way out as health minister thanks to the dodgy Digital Vibes contract, and lo, it has come to pass. In a dramatic about turn, President Cyril Ramaphosa did not await the outcome of the Special Investigating Unit's probe as he initially planned. The problem was public outrage grew so fiercely that Ramaphosa had to put Mkhize on special leave, which he did on Tuesday. Look, it's a messy scenario. We desperately need strong leadership on the health front given the pandemic. Now, Mkhize's future will finally be decided once the SIU finishes that probe at the end of June as promised. It isn't looking good, and Mkhize will probably be axed for good if the outcome of the probe is negative. Now, to answer that first trick question, your new acting health minister is former tourism minister Mameloko Ngubane. It's an awkward appointment because Ngubane has no medical track record and hasn't been particularly good as a tourism minister. Here's our question. What's the point of having deputy ministers? Surely they should step into the gap when something like this happens. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Matume Joseph, or Joe Pahla as he's called, has served under Mkhize throughout this pandemic and is surely better placed to keep things ticking over. Plus, he's a medical doctor. So why not just make him minister? Insiders say it's because a much larger cabinet reshuffle is afoot. Our ministerial pack of cards desperately needs a shuffle. There's one vacant position, minister in the presidency, that needs to be filled. It was held by Jackson Mthembu, who passed away in January. Plus, there have long been rumors that our finance minister, Tito Mboweni, is due to be replaced. He is often the lone voice of fiscal reason in the cabinet, although his culinary reason is famously lacking. Enough with the death by garlic recipes on Twitter, minister. But Mboweni has never been that enamored with the politics of his position and openly admits that he took the job under duress. Now, the trouble is, Ramaphosa needs a super heavyweight in that position, and now also in health. These are two big positions in our cabinet. As usual, in the weird world of the ANC, things are being held up by internal deliberations. This may be the impetus needed to shuffle those cards and cut it pronto. Ramaphosa was pressured into keeping way too many of his predecessor Jacob Zuma's bloated cabinet, so a reshuffle will hopefully entail a couple of ministerial posts getting the chop altogether. Now, according to News 24, there are several possible replacements for the all-important job of finance minister. Here's a couple of the names that are floating around. Respected South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago, former Deputy SARB Governor and ABSA CEO David Minele, the one who was famously forced out, former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas, and finally Mboweni's Deputy David Masondo. Now, if you were president for a day, who would you choose? We choose not to be the president for a day. Ha ha ha. On to the big story of today. A magic bullet for South Africa's electricity crisis? Are you tired of all the load shedding? So is South Africa's corporate sector. Until today, a company could only create 1 megawatt of energy and relied on Eskom for the rest. As you can imagine, the rest is quite a lot, and Eskom is not exactly handling it, as you can tell, with all the blackouts. Now, in a big announcement today, Ramaphosa said the government is raising the 1 megawatt limit to a whopping 100 megawatts with an amendment to the Electricity Act. He effectively overruled Gwede Mantashe, who's the Mineral Resources and Energy Minister, and he's previously insisted on a threshold of just 10 megawatts. Now, what does this all mean? To explain, a company can only generate its own supply of electricity up to a certain amount. In this instance, it used to be 1 megawatt. And this has been a topic of huge debate. Self-generation is by far the quickest way to bring additional megawatts onto the grid, and lobby groups have been hard at work to increase that threshold, as that really could be the magic bullet to help the country's energy crisis. Today's announcement is more than even the lobbyists had hoped for. Organised Business and the Mineral Council South Africa, as well as Eskom CEO, recommended that the threshold be set at 50 megawatts. A mine would require at least 40 megawatts of power, to put that into perspective. If you think about it, a washing machine is about 1,000 megawatts. So For 10,000 megawatts would be like 10,000 washing machines. So they were saying we need a lot more than that. Now, bigger enterprises, which are more likely to have the cash to invest in self-generation, would need even more than 40 megawatts of power. So going up to 100 megawatts is just really super impressive. Now, here are some of the implications. It takes the pressure off Eskom. All that load shedding we've been hit with recently is because our national electricity system is like a car that's been driven hard for 10 years and never serviced. It's falling apart and it needs to be fixed. Secondly, companies can plan for their future more effectively, and they're more likely to invest and spend their cash reserves knowing they can guarantee their own energy supply. The private sector often holds back because of uncertainty on this and other issues, which hampers the entire economy. This move could lead to more growth, money circulating in the economy, and jobs. Thirdly, companies can sell their extra electricity to the national grid, and metros, like the city of Joburg, could buy it. This means potentially more reliable electricity for you and me as ordinary citizens. The shift generally just opens up a freer market when it comes to electricity, instead of forcing everyone to use Eskom, which can't handle all the demand anyway. So this means metros and us in the country generally can maybe benefit from this too. And lastly, this move will unlock significant investment in the energy generation sector. Think solar and other renewable energy companies getting more work and creating jobs. Clean energy and more jobs, we're here for it. Well done on the bold and decisive action, Cyril. More of this, please. Moving on to your briefs, Accountability Monitor this week has a justice bonanza. We know we keep telling you that the wheels of justice turn slowly, and you keep asking, quite rightly, when are people going to jail? Well, it's happening. This week saw the most high-profile arrest to date in the state capture saga, along with charges brought against the Gupta brothers, their wives and others related to a dodgy Free State deal that paved the way for the infamous Astina Dairy scandal. That's the one where money meant to help poor cattle farmers in the Free State instead paid for a gaudy Gupta wedding in 2013 at Sun City. Speaking of gaudy, one of the Gupta's key allies, local businessman Iqbal Sharma, was arrested and denied bail, as he'd probably flee given half a chance. Sharma and his celeb wife, Tarina Patel, have often shown off their hideous Morningside Bollywood-style mansion on top billing and social media. Now, that mansion, along with loads of other assets belonging to them and the Guptas, has been attached by authorities. Yes, that includes the Saxonwall compound. Things are finally moving. Attached means they're going to get the proceeds of it to pay back us as the taxpayer for all the money that was stolen. Now, you'll recall that the Guptas fled to Dubai in 2018 when they sensed the looting game was up. Well, the United Arab Emirates has signed an extradition agreement against the Guptas, which will give South Africa the right and ability to bring the infamous family to book. We could only apply for extradition once criminal charges were brought, which is why we weren't able to force them to appear before the Zonda Commission. It wasn't a criminal trial. Now, that's not all. Remember how the brother of EFF deputy leader Floyd Shivambu was implicated in the VBS mutual saga of pilfering pensioner money? Well, last week, Daily Maverick revealed that the younger Shivambu will pay back the 4.5 million rand he received, signing an agreement admitting that there was no underlying basis for the payment. The ice is thinning under EFF leader Julius Malemba and Floyd Shivambu too. Do you see the light at the end of this long anti-corruption tunnel? We certainly do. On to some other news, the Tembisa 10. Did a South African woman living in Tembisa, Gauteng, break the Guinness World Record by having 10 babies at once? That's the question seemingly everyone is asking after Pretoria News broke the story showing a very pregnant woman. Even the BBC is reporting the story. The trouble is, government officials haven't been able to confirm the birth, and the family isn't showing the baby, citing health and cultural reasons. That hasn't stopped social media from throwing the family a national baby shower, while the controversial media house that was behind the story, dubious businessman Iqbal Survey's independent media, has furiously denounced cynics. Still, we'll believe it when we see the 10 bouncing babies. Until then, we're waiting for the proof. On to some business news. Keep it up economy. South Africa's economy, which is measured by our gross domestic product, expanded by 1.1% in the first quarter of 2021 to 4.6%. That's better than the 3.1% that economists predicted. With the positive growth so far, economists have been reviewing their forecasts for economic growth generally. Some now say they expect the economy to grow and reach at least 5% by the end of this year in terms of growth. Some also say we could reach pre-pandemic GDP levels by 2023. That would be huge. The increase in GDP just means that the cost of living will decrease for me and you. Now we just need Eskom and load shedding to behave. On to some COVID conspiracy news. A It's hard to separate fact from fiction when it comes to the pandemic and its associated infodemic, which is the spread of misinformation. There's long been a conspiracy theory that the virus was maliciously invented in a lab instead of originating at a wet market in Wuhan. The World Health Organization investigated the virus origins, but not everybody was satisfied with its findings. So now the US and UK have launched their own investigations. It's a plethora of probes. So what can you believe? We'd probably steer clear of the nutty theories that Chinese authorities planned all of this to take down the world, but they could have potentially covered up a lab accident where the new virus was being studied and maybe jumped to a human. Look, we don't know that either. Given how much misinformation, disinformation, and how many conspiracy theories proliferate on this issue, we advise that you keep your fake news antenna finely tuned and carefully assess everything you read by considering the source and the agendas at play. In some crazy international news, find a square meter in your house, cordon it off with some tape, and present it to people as a piece of art. Then sell it. Sounds ridiculous, right? Obviously, but it happened. On 16th May, Italian artist Salvatore Garau presented his invisible sculpture to the public. He called it Buddha in Contemplations. The artist lists air and spirit as the installation's mediums. The nothingness fetched $18,000 and it went up for sale. We're not kidding. When questioned about his work, the artist said, "You do not see it, but it exists. It is made of air and spirit. It is a work that asks you to activate the power of imagination, a power that anyone has, even those who don't think they have it." He likened it to people buying into the God they have never seen. We liken it to the empty promises politicians make and that people keep buying. The emperor really is without clothes. On to some other international news. What's a midlife crisis without buying a posh car or dating someone half your age? But recently divorced billionaire Jeff Bezos is taking his midlife crisis to a whole other level. Space. Bezos, who is of course the founder of Amazon, is 57 and he plans to join the first crewed suborbital flight by Blue Origin, his own space flight company. Bezos invited his brother Mark to join him on his mission, which he hopes to launch on July 20th. South African comedian Trevor Noah, as always, had something funny to say about it. Now, if you ask me, he said, I think space travel is a natural fit for the founder of Amazon. Think about it. Astronauts are just workers who have to wear diapers because they don't get bathroom breaks, so it makes total sense. Look, we'll never pass up an opportunity to take a dig at Amazon for its terrible treatment of workers, hence including that joke. Now, you can join Bezos if you want to. He's auctioning off a seat to a winning bidder. But also know this, Bezos is among the richest men alongside Michael Bloomberg, Elon Musk, and Warren Buffett, who have taken advantage of loopholes in the American tax code, according to a ProPublica investigation that broke this week in the US. It was found that when their wealth increased, they paid relatively little or close to nothing in federal income taxes over 4 years from 2014. Imagine being that rich but still finding ways to escape the rules. Finally, fact-checking America's favorite doctor. Don't believe everything you read, especially if it's written by a cartoonist who is also a conspiracy theorist. As the Daily Maverick reported this week, the release of thousands of emails by Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci to the US President has caused a frenzy among conspiracy theorists globally. In South Africa, cartoonist Jeremy Nell's analysis of the Fauci emails has been widely shared, but every single claim made by Nell is patently false. Now, Nell, who has been openly skeptical about pretty much anything related to COVID, conveniently twisted Dr. Fauci's response for his own ends. He claimed Fauci said all sorts of things in the emails that he just didn't, including that asymptomatic people can't spread the virus, that masks are useless, and that the emails explain how the virus was created in a Wuhan lab, but they don't. Now, Nell's article has been widely shared, including by the African Christian Democratic Party and Professor Tim Noakes. So the reason we're talking about it is that if you come across this irresponsible article, which is published by BizNews, please don't share it. And finally, for some funny news from abroad, the French president gets a hot one. Down with Macronia. It doesn't mean down with macaroni, nor is it anti-macaroons. We'd hate to see that happening. Instead, it's the phrase uttered by one French man in a green t-shirt, a mask, and sunglasses after he comically slapped French President Emmanuel Macron, who was on a walkabout in southern France. Look, we obviously don't advocate violence, but wow, do we sometimes also want to slap a politician. The man in the green t-shirt and one other was arrested for the incident, but it will rank up there along with the teenager who egged Australian politician Fraser Anning, or the time tomatoes were thrown at former US President Donald Trump. Now that's it from us at The Wrap, a product of Explained.co.za. Simple news summaries for busy people. Remember to share the love, tell your friends to sign up for the updates at explained.co.za/subscribe. Till next time, goodbye from the team.